Hello, today we're looking at the heart as well as components of blood. So we are currently in paper 2 of Edexcel, exchange and transport, and we've moved from the circulatory system down to the heart. Now just a quick reminder of last video's lesson, we were looking at the circulatory system. Now what I suggest is that at the end of each lesson, you make yourself some revision cards to help you revise what you have just learned. So you might have a revision card that says compare veins, capillaries and arteries, and your answer on the other side of the revision card, or if you're using a page in your book that you're folding in half, on the left hand side the question, on the right hand side you would have a copy of this table. So you can test yourself and see if you can come up with a good comparison and check anything that you're missing and work on getting that into your long-term memory. Okay, so today we're going to focus on the structure of the heart. Now, the heart is in fact divided into 4 chambers. We got the 2 chambers at the top and we got the 2 chambers at the bottom. The chambers at the top are called the atria. The atrium, just like the attic, is at the top. And the ones at the bottom are called the ventricle. Now, one thing you need to be aware, at the moment, my thumb is on my right side. But if I put this down on paper, like when I'm drawing the heart, the right is on the left and the left is on the right. So in fact, the right-hand side of this picture is in fact the left-hand side of the heart. So you can see the labels here, right ventricle, right atrium. Now if we take some blood that is traveling from our baby toe, where it just picked up some carbon dioxide in the capillaries and it's now traveling back to the heart. That blood will arrive in a vein because it's going to the heart, so it's a vein, and that main vein is called the vena cava. The blood then pours into a relaxed atrium, so it relaxes so that it is allowed to fill up. Now, what's stopping it from moving into the ventricle are these valves at this junction. So those valves are closed so that the atrium can fill up. And then what happens is the atrium contracts, and as it contracts, the ventricle relaxes and the blood pours into the ventricle. Then the next thing is the ventricle is going to contract, and as the ventricle contracts, the deoxygenated blood is pushed up over here via this artery because it's going away from the heart, and that artery is the pulmonary artery. It's moving to the lung to pick up oxygen, and it comes back via the pulmonary vein to this time the left atrium, which fills up, it contracts, relaxes, the ventricle fills up, and then the ventricle contracts, and this time that contraction pumps the blood via this huge blood vessel here called the aorta, which is the biggest artery in the body, probably about that thick, and it pumps the blood to all the organs in the body. Okay, so just a reminder that actually there is a natural pacemaker that sends signals into the heart muscles telling them to contract at the same time. So that's why while I'm describing one section at a time, both ventricles contract at the same time. So the contraction moves from the bottom up, closing up the ventricle, pushing it up through the blood vessels to the body or to the lungs. Sometimes something goes wrong with our natural pacemaker, and then doctors are cleverly able to insert an artificial pacemaker, which can then take over that functioning of the heart, and it needs to be replaced at least every decade if it's working well. Now, here's a question. Why has the left side of the heart got more muscle than the right side of the heart? And you might think of this as we go through the next part. You may want to pause the video and print the sheet where you have got this diagram. What we're going to do now is we're going to label it. We always label it in pen with a ruler for the label lines and try and avoid crossing label lines as we go. So the first label we're going to put in is the aorta, and that is the main blood vessel taking oxygenated blood away from the heart to the rest of the body. We then have on the other side, on the right side, remember the sides are swapped, we have the vena cava that's carrying blood from the top part of our body. That's called superior vena cava, meaning from the top, and you also get the inferior vena cava. We'll point to that at the moment. There's a blood vessel there, and it's blue because it's the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is the only artery carrying deoxygenated blood to the lungs to pick up oxygen. Our next label is the right pulmonary vein. You can see it does split. And then we have the right atrium. There we have the inferior vena cava, carrying deoxygenated blood from the bottom of the body to the heart. If you need to pause the video at any time and you're on a keyboard, you can just press the letter K to pause the video and K to restart the video. Okay, then we have the right ventricle. And it may be useful at this point in time just to put a big R on the left-hand side of your paper, just to remind you that it's flipped when it's down on the paper. And there we have the left ventricle. Now notice how the walls of this left ventricle are slightly thicker than the walls of the right ventricle. In real life, it's a lot more exaggerated. Now that's because when the left ventricle contracts, blood's got to go all the way around the body, not just to the lungs. So the muscular walls need to be thicker for a stronger action. Then we have the left atrium and the left pulmonary veins. Remember, there's a left lung and a right lung to go to. And then we have the left pulmonary artery. Now, in your next lesson, I'm going to be dissecting a heart for you. So you will be able to see this diagram in real life. Really looking forward to doing that for you. Okay, and then we have the aortic valves. It's just splitting to go to different parts of the body. Now what I'd like you to do is just add in some arrows onto your diagram to show the direction of the blood flow. Okay, so over here I've shown the oxygenated blood, and over here the deoxygenated blood. And you should be able to describe the flow of blood around the heart. So you need to know your scientific terms. Now, to help you do this, I'm giving you a little bit of help here, and I'm giving you a whole list of points to describe the flow of blood around the heart, starting with point F. They're all jumbled. See if you can put this in the right order. And then in a moment, you can check your order. So if you just write down the letters, and then we will make a set of notes by writing it in full in the correct order. Okay, how did you do? So we're now putting them in the correct order, and I need you to write it down you can almost write it down as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in your books in the correct order. So pause the video to copy down these bullet points and underline any keywords. Let's look and see how we would do in this exam question. It says, explain in detail what happens to the heart rate during exercise. Now, think about what happens when you are perhaps going for a run. There's a couple of points here. I've put one down for you. Take 4 minutes and see if you can come up with the other 4 points. Okay, let's see how we're doing. So we know that the heart increases during exercise, and we need to always ask the question, so what, to add more detail to our question. So what? So why do we have to increase the heart rate? Because we need to pump blood around the body quicker. So what? Let's have a look. So the muscles need to contract more because they're exercising. Your leg muscles are doing lots of work as you're running, and therefore they will need a lot more energy. So where does that energy come from? That energy is produced, or should we rather say, that's a real trap over there, we shouldn't say produced, we say it's released during the process of respiration. Okay, this is a real bugbear of examiners. Remember, energy is never created or destroyed, it's just released from that energy that was trapped inside those glucose molecules. So more energy is released during the process of respiration. And what does respiration need? It needs oxygen and it needs glucose. Glucose is the fuel. And that fuel is carried by the blood. And therefore, more oxygen and glucose is needed as respiration is occurring quicker, so the heart pumps quicker. Write this down as a model answer before we move on. Now there's a little calculation we need to learn for this section, and it's all about cardiac output and what we call stroke volume. So cardiac output is the volume of blood pushed into the aorta every minute to go around our body. And we have approximately 5 liters of blood flowing around our body at any time. Now this is the equation you need to remember. The cardiac output is the amount of liters of blood per minute. The stroke volume, we talk about the liters per beat, and the heart rate is the beats per minute. And for those of you who like triangles, perhaps it's this triangle that you want to memorize. So the stroke volume is the volume of blood pushed into the aorta in 1 beat. And then the heart rate is obviously the number of times the heart beats in a minute. Now I'm going to give you a worked example, and then you can copy the subheading, notes, and worked example into your book. Okay, so the question is, calculate the cardiac output of a heart that pumps out 0.83 liters of blood 59 times per minute. So the 0.83 is our stroke volume. The heart rate is 59. So we write down the formula always. We show our substitution, and that gives us an answer of 4.9 liters per minute. Never forget the units unless they give them to you, and I've written to 2 significant figures. Now in the next slide, after you've copied this down, there is 2 questions for you to do, and this is where we will pick up in the next video.